Welcome to Create, Build, Manage, the Entrepreneur's Toolbox.
Welcome to Create, Build, Manage on BizTV. I'm Kelly Phillips. Today we're joined by Aris Background, CEO of a regional brewer in Denver who's taking on the big national beer brands. Stick around, we'll be right back with more Create, Build, Manage only on BizTV. Back in 2012, a passionate group of Colorado natives came together to bring new life into historic Colorado beers. And our next guest was brought on board to lead the charge towards unprecedented growth. Please welcome Aris Background. And Aris, tell us a little bit about your background. You didn't just start in small beer, did you?
No. So I worked for Anheuser-Busch right out of college for about 7 or 8 years, rotated around the country. I spent time in Los Angeles, St. Louis, New York City, Colorado Springs, and then Denver. And throughout that time, I obviously learned an enormous amount about the alcohol industry and specifically the beer industry. But most of my time with Anheuser-Busch was spent on the sales and marketing side of the business, but also wholesaler operations, as well as logistics. So I was fortunate enough to come into a program that I give Anheuser-Busch an enormous amount of credit for, which is what they call their Global Management Trainee Program, which really is meant to train the future leaders within the industry and really the company. And so it's an enormous opportunity for me and a great learning experience over the last, it was 7 or 8 years at the time.
So what's the biggest difference, you would say, from working from a big major company like Anheuser-Busch to now being into more of a craft beer, I guess?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different things. So when you think about beer and really the alcohol category overall, you've got really, really large companies like an Anheuser-Busch, a Molson Coors, Constellation, Gallo, and obviously it is diverse across wine, spirits, and beer. And then you've got a really long tail of, it could be a local microbrewery that doesn't even sell their products outside of a 30-mile radius. And then you've got regional players and the national players. And there's the obvious constraints that we face as a smaller entity, which is resources, right? So when you think about the resources that we have available to us versus the resources of a Molson Coors or an Anheuser-Busch, there's a pretty it's almost David versus Goliath. But within that, you also and this is specific to the alcohol category, you also have a lot of challenges from the fact that the industry is not as simple as let's make a product and then hopefully consumers want to buy the product, right? So since Prohibition, you've got this 3-tier system where we are a supplier, we're a manufacturer. We then, by federal law, have to sell to a distributor, and then a distributor would then sell to a retailer, and then that retailer would sell to a consumer. So you have, by law, 3 tiers, and really the consumer is the 4th tier. And when you're smaller, you don't have this, big network of distributors supporting your existing brands, your future brands. You've got to go out and really earn that business. And each one of those distributors is an independent business. So those are their own, local, regional, statewide businesses. And so it's not just a one size fits all model. You've got to be interacting with, our customers being the wholesalers, but then also large retailers like a Walmart or a Kroger or a Costco that you also need to be working with. And so, kind of coming back to your question, when you think about the biggest differences between a big and a small, it's not just the resource constraint, but it's also how much complexity there is to the business in the alcohol category that makes it really hard for smaller players to be successful on a national footprint or even a regional footprint.
Yeah. Is it easier, do you think, these days? I mean, in 2024, you've got the likes of social media and other marketing platforms that you can use versus what was around back in, say, the year 2000?
Yeah, from a marketing perspective, it's a really interesting question. And one of the things that continues to surprise me is if you go out and you go on Instagram, for example, and go on Bud Light, go on Coors Light, Coors, big national, well-known brands. There's a lot of regional influencers that have more followers on Instagram than an alcohol brand. I don't know exactly why that is. And I think there's a lot of companies in this space that are trying to navigate. There's also compliance that comes into play as well, making sure that you're advertising to 21 plus. But in the world of digital and social media, it's certainly been an adventure to kind of understand what works, what doesn't work, what can we do from a compliance perspective with influencers within the space. And so, again, to answer your question, I think that there absolutely is opportunities. I don't think that anybody has completely figured out how to be successful in marketing from a digital and a social media perspective specific to alcohol. And a lot of the marketing dollars are still being spent by alcohol companies, including us, in a traditional fashion, right? Sponsorships of sports teams, in-store signage, billboards, radio ads, TV ads. I mean, Super Bowl ads are still at an all-time premium. And guess who's spending the most money on Super Bowl ads every year? It's Anheuser-Busch. And they're doing it because it works. And so I think that there's definitely opportunities to innovate within the marketing space, looking at things like digital and social. But what we've found and what the market still is definitely chasing is that traditional media, for the most part, is the best way to connect with consumers, especially 21 and up.
But how do you compete as a small company up against, for example, the Anheuser-Busch, who is on all the Super Bowl commercials? How do you get the word out about your company?
Yeah. So for us, it's really, our strategy is really twofold. Number one is we want to connect with the consumer at the point of purchase, right? Now, we can't pay for advertising space within a grocery store. We can't pay to have a display on, but we have a sales team out in the market that is fighting every day, almost like grassroots sales, fighting every day to get those, premier real estate pieces within a store so that your brand is front and center. So that's kind of one. And the other is liquid on lips, right? We believe that we've got the best liquid in the light beer category, right? And there's no better way to do that than to go into a bar and find a couple people drinking, competitive product and say, hey, we've got this great beer. We think it's phenomenal. We think it's better liquid. Would you mind if we bought you a pint or gave you a sample and let you try it and let the consumer make the decision around it? And so, of course, we're not competing, for Super Bowl ads or sponsoring the NFL or the NHL. We don't have those kinds of budgets, and we certainly don't have the resources to execute them the right way. But we've really taken the point of purchase and grassroots to drive consumer trial, consumer awareness. And of course, we're investing in social and digital as well. But again, you face the same kind of challenge around resource constraints and budget constraints, where our brand now has a footprint in over 40 states. If we wanted to market to, target consumers that are drinking light beer, sorry about that. If you want to be, targeting these consumers across 40 states, even in digital and social media for paid ads, you would need Super Bowl level budgets. And so that's really what is driving, the almost inequity from a marketing perspective. But I don't think that's specifically unique to the alcohol industry alone, right? That's a challenge for any consumer goods company trying to get brand awareness, get trial, get it in front of consumers. We have a few more laws and regulations that we need to follow than a non-alcoholic beverage, but resource constraints are certainly a key driver to that.
So you mentioned that you can find your particular beer in 40 states right now?
Yeah. So we launched Outlaw in 2022, 2002. And since then, we just launched in the state of Colorado, and quickly found ourselves in Kansas and a few neighboring states. And if you fast forward to where we are today, we're actually now distributed in 40 plus states across the USA. Now, are we everywhere? Are we in every store and every bar in those 40 states? Of course not. That's our goal. That's where we want to get to. But we've got a lot of success with retailers like Walmart, Circle K, H-E-B down in Texas, in your neck of the woods, and Kroger and Safeway. So if you do want to go find Outlaw Beer and you do want to go give us a try, you can always visit our website, outlawbeer.com, go to our store finder, and hopefully you'll be able to find a store pretty close to you where you can go out and grab a 12 pack or make it a 24 pack and give it a try and share it with some friends.
Ari, if you don't mind, will you stick around? Because we've got some more questions for you when we come back.
Absolutely.
We are back with Ari Opsahl to talk a little bit more about Tuli Brewing Company. And tell us, this company has not been around all that long, but you are already seeing massive growth. How does that happen?
Yeah, so I want to give you a little bit of history for a second, because the statement of not being around for very long is not exactly accurate. It's partially accurate. So, interestingly enough, Tuli Brewing Company is one of the oldest breweries in the country. It was actually founded in 1859 by a German immigrant by the name of John Good, who effectively moved out to Colorado. The gold and silver rush was happening, and he came out and said, maybe I won't go chase the gold and silver in the hills. I'll make liquid gold, because all these people chasing the gold rush, we're going to need beer one way or another. And he actually built the brewery, started in 1859, to actually one of the biggest breweries in the country back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Unfortunately, there was a labor strike, a huge flood, obviously a lot of other competitive brands coming to the market. And so in the 60s and 70s, Tivoli unfortunately closed its doors. Back in 2014, 2015, Tivoli reopened with a different set of investors, a different group. I wasn't here. And they really were focusing in on being a powerful craft beer player within the state of Colorado. Unfortunately, their timing was not great. It was great brand, great liquid, good story. But unfortunately, craft beer really was saturated by the time they got to market, and it didn't work. In about 2020, a new group came in, acquired the majority of the company. I was hired to come in late 2021. And one of the things that I really focused in on with the group of investors and owners, as well as the board, was, guys, craft beer is going to be a really tough space to win in with the current environment within the category. And so I said, look, but I think that there is an incredible opportunity to disrupt what I call the light beer category. So we actually don't consider ourselves a craft beer. I believe we have craft quality within our beer, but if you look at our pricing model on Outlaw out in the market, we're priced with Busch Light, Keystone Light, Natural Light. Our taste profile, we're a 4.2% ABV, very sessionable light beer. And so we saw the opportunity to innovate and be disruptive within the space. Not that there's anything wrong with the brands that currently exist in the space, but much more in regards to the fact that the brands are pretty antiquated, right? If you think about Natural Light, Busch Light, Keystone Light, even Coors Light, Bud Light, these are brands that my dad was drinking in college. And so we believe, and I think at this point we've proven the concept to be true, that people are looking for alternatives within the light beer space. But the challenge gets presented very quickly in regards to the fact that when you're a smaller brewer, you don't get the benefits of scale, right? We don't have a global procurement office hedging futures of aluminum in Belgium, right? We're purchasing cans in bulk we're doing the best we can, but competing on a cost basis is nearly impossible. And so if you want to compete at retail with these brands that are benefiting from that cost basis, we're going to be making very low margin, right? And that's, kudos to our investors that are willing to fund this endeavor, because the profitability index or the profitability capability of the company is extremely challenging until we reach enormous scale. Now we're getting there, and I think we've made enormous strides in improvements on our cost of goods, as well as our freight and logistics, but it's still a challenge. And so the reason why you haven't seen other people do this in this space is exactly what I just laid out. If you want to compete in price to the consumer and you can't compete on the cost side, you have to be willing to give up margin. And that's been our strategy from day one. And consumers are reacting with enormous positivity towards our brand, towards the liquid, and towards the fact that we're a reasonably priced, great beer that is an alternative to what the macro producers have had out there for decades.
Just listening to you talk, I can hear the passion in your voice. Where does that passion come from? Did you always know that you wanted to be in the alcohol industry?
No. When I was in college, I was very much planning to go be an investment banker in New York City. Don't hold that against me. But the opportunity with Budweiser, the opportunity with Budweiser came up, and there's no hiding it. I love beer. I think beer is. I would love to claim that this was my original idea. It's not. I got this from someone else. But Facebook's not the original social media. Beer is. Beer's been bringing people together for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. People have been fermenting, grain and sugar to get ethanol for as long as history's been written. And so being a part of that, I think, is incredible. I think beer, if you really look at the history of beer, it's meant to be part of the community. Breweries and beer brands help sponsor, lawnmower racing, dune buggy races, swamp buggy races. It's not just the NFL and the NBA and the NHL. It's being part of the community. And then in the end, bringing people together to have a good time or celebrate after, a big personal success. And so being with it, being a part of beer is something that I'm excited about. And I couldn't be more excited to have a brand that is doing so well, is being received incredibly well by consumers, retailers, and distributors alike. And it really seems like the market has been waiting for something like this to come along. And because of that cost basis challenge that I laid out, it just hasn't happened. So we're the crazy ones doing it. It's working. We're having a lot of fun doing it. And we truly believe that, America deserves a new light beer. And we think that beer is outlaw.
You've seen a lot of changes in the alcohol industry since you've been in it. What changes do you see coming in the future, say in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think there's a couple macro trends that are really interesting. So one is the non-alcohol space, right? And it was all over the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago. Athletic Brewing, kudos to them, huge success. We're valued at $800 million. There's a lot of people that are choosing to remove or reduce ethanol from their consumption. And that's fine. That is their prerogative. And I'm happy that people are able to find a beer that tastes like beer that doesn't have ethanol in it. And so I think we'll continue to see development there. I'm not as bullish on how big that category can get, because I think consumers are willing to only pay so much when you remove the utility that ethanol delivers. So I think that's one. Two is the continued kind of gray area within alcohol category. So, 10 years ago, it was beer, wine, and spirits. Now you've got ready to drink cocktails, brands like High Noon, and some are malt-based, some are spirit-based. You've got a product called OTS, which is fermented from oranges, that's kind of blurring the line and how that gets in. You've got hard kombuchas. And so I think you're going to continue to see innovation in the space. But I actually think, and if you look at the macro trends within the beer space, light beer has actually been falling off over the last couple of decades. Now, it's still an enormous category, but it's been falling off. I see that coming back. And as we continue to feel, macroeconomic pressures like inflation, increased, groceries, increased gas, increased this, and, you see all the data that, income is not coming in line. Light beer is a very safe place to be. And I think it's a great place to be because you can deliver that reward that is affordable, right? It's not an expensive bottle of tequila, an expensive bottle of vodka, or a $30, 12 pack of some great IPA. And so we're able to offer that to consumers. And if you follow the data in more recent times, light beer is actually seeing a resurgence as people, I think consumers have kind of gotten past the 300 calorie IPA, the $30 12 pack, and they're coming back to light beer. And we're here ready to hopefully serve them up a great outlaw.
Tivoli Brewing Company, Outlaw Light Beer. Give it a try. You can find it in Texas at HEB, and list off a couple of the other places you can find it around the country.
Yeah, you should go to find it at Walmart, Circle K's, handful of states with Costco, a lot of independent retail, Applebee's. The list goes on. But like I said, the best place to go find it is outlawbeer.com. We've got a store finder on there. There should be a store close to you where we would love to have you go out and give it a try.
All right. Thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it today.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for joining me today for BizTV's Create, Build, Manage. Episodes of Create, Build, Manage are available on demand on the free BizTV streaming app. Visit watch.biztv.com and get BizTV programming anytime, anywhere. Stay tuned to BizTV for more stories that educate, enlighten, and empower.